Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to the channel. I'm so excited to dive into today's book with you because it completely changed how I think about success and achievement. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to effortlessly achieve their dreams while others with equal or even greater talent struggle to reach their goals? Maybe you felt frustrated watching someone less naturally gifted than you surpass your accomplishments, or perhaps you've questioned whether you have what it takes to achieve something meaningful in your life. Today we're exploring Angela Duckworth's groundbreaking book Grit, The Power of Passion and Perseverance. And here's what's beautiful about this book. It shows us that talent isn't destiny. Success isn't about being the smartest person in the room or having natural gifts that others don't possess. It's about something far more within our control. So grab your favorite drink, get comfortable, and let's discover why grit might be the most important quality you can develop. Angela Duckworth didn't set out to become a psychology researcher. She was actually a management consultant and then a 7th grade math teacher. But it was in that classroom where she noticed something that would change the direction of her entire career. Her most successful students weren't necessarily the ones who learned math concepts the fastest. Instead, the students who ultimately achieved the most were those who kept working, kept trying, even when problems seemed impossible. This observation led her to West Point Military Academy, the National Spelling Bee, and eventually to groundbreaking research that would redefine how we understand achievement. Let's start with the core foundation of grit. Duckworth defines grit as passion and perseverance for very long-term goals. Now, this isn't just about being stubborn or refusing to quit when you should. Grit is about maintaining effort and interest despite failures, adversity, and plateaus in progress. It's about working strenuously toward challenges and maintaining that effort and passion for years, not just weeks or months. The author discovered that grit consists of two essential components. First is passion, which Duckworth describes as consistency of interest over time. This doesn't mean you're obsessed with something every single day, but rather that you have a stable, long-term commitment to particular goals. The second component is perseverance, which is the persistence of effort despite obstacles, discouragement, and setbacks. Here's what's fascinating, and maybe counterintuitive, about Duckworth's research. She found that grit actually matters more than talent in predicting success. At West Point, she discovered that grit was a better predictor of which cadets would complete the rigorous summer training program than measures of talent, leadership potential, or physical fitness. At the National Spelling Bee, grittier contestants were more likely to advance to further rounds, even when controlling for verbal intelligence. But here's the thing that really changed my perspective. Duckworth shows us that our culture is obsessed with talent, but talent without grit doesn't lead to achievement. She introduces us to what she calls the talent myth, this belief that success comes from natural ability. In reality, her research reveals that skill is built through deliberate practice, and achievement comes from skill multiplied by effort. Now let's dive deep into how grit actually works in our lives. Duckworth explains that gritty people have what she calls a hierarchical structure of goals. At the top level, they have an ultimate concern, minus a compass that guides all their decisions. This might be something like help others reach their potential or create beautiful art that moves people. Beneath this top-level goal are mid-level goals that serve the ultimate concern, and beneath those are low-level goals, the specific actions and habits that support everything above them. What makes gritty people different is that they're willing to abandon lower-level goals that don't serve their ultimate purpose, but they never abandon their top-level goal. For example, if you're passionate about helping others learn, you might quit a particular teaching job that isn't working, but you wouldn't abandon education entirely. You'd find another way to fulfill that ultimate purpose. The author also introduces us to the concept of deliberate practice, which is fundamentally different from just putting in time or even practicing regularly. Deliberate practice involves working on your weaknesses with full concentration, seeking constant feedback, and pushing beyond your comfort zone. It's not enjoyable in the moment, in fact, it's often frustrating and demanding. But this is how experts in every field, from violin players to chess masters to athletes, actually improve their skills. Duckworth shows us that people often believe practice should feel good, but deliberate practice feels challenging because you're constantly working at the edge of your abilities. She shares the story of how swimmers who were getting worse during practice were actually improving more than those who felt comfortable, because the struggling swimmers were being challenged at the right level. One of the most powerful concepts in the book is what Duckworth calls growth mindset meets passion. She builds on Carol Dweck's research about fixed versus growth mindsets, but adds the element of deep commitment to particular goals. Having a growth mindset means believing you can improve your abilities through effort and learning. But grit takes this further. It's about applying that growth mindset consistently toward the same long-term objective, year after year. The author explains that interests aren't discovered in a moment of revelation. Instead, they are developed through a process of exploration, followed by deeper engagement, then years of deepening and refinement. Many people expect to feel passionate about something immediately, but passion actually grows over time as you develop competence and see the impact of your work. Duckworth also addresses the role of hope in developing grit. But this isn't wishful thinking or blind optimism. Instead, it's what psychologists call agency and pathways thinking. Agency is believing you can influence your circumstances, and pathways thinking is believing you can find ways to solve problems and reach your goals. Together, these create the kind of hope that sustains effort over time, even when progress seems slow. The book reveals something crucial about setbacks and failures. Gritty people don't avoid failure, they respond to it differently. When they encounter obstacles, they ask, "What can I control?" rather than dwelling on what they can't control. They treat failures as information, not as evidence that they should give up. This doesn't mean they don't feel disappointed or frustrated, but they don't let those emotions determine their next actions. Now here's where things get really practical and life-changing. Duckworth shares 4 key ways to develop grit from the inside out. First is developing your interest through exploration and discovery. You can't be gritty about something you don't care about, so the journey begins with finding what naturally draws your attention and curiosity. But remember, interests are developed, not just discovered. You need to give things time to grow on you. Second is connecting your work to a purpose larger than yourself. Gritty people see their efforts as contributing to something meaningful beyond their own success. This might mean helping others, solving important problems, or creating something of lasting value. When your daily work connects to a bigger purpose, you can persevere through the inevitable difficulties and setbacks. Third is cultivating a growth mindset and embracing deliberate practice. This means seeking out challenges that push you beyond your current abilities, asking for feedback even when it's uncomfortable, and focusing on improvement rather than just performance. It means viewing your abilities as things you can develop, rather than fixed traits you either have or don't have. Fourth is surrounding yourself with a culture of grit. The people around you profoundly influence your own persistence and passion. Seek out mentors, colleagues, and friends who model grit in their own lives. Join communities where effort and improvement are valued over natural talent or quick wins. Duckworth also explores how to develop grit from the outside in, particularly through parenting and teaching. She introduces us to what researchers call authoritative parenting, being both demanding and supportive. This means having high standards and expectations while also providing the warmth and guidance needed to meet those standards. It's not about being harsh or critical, but about believing in someone's potential and helping them stretch to reach it. The author shares fascinating research about extracurricular activities and their role in developing grit. Students who participated in extracurricular activities for at least 2 years and who achieved some level of advancement or leadership in those activities showed higher levels of grit and were more likely to graduate from college. But here's the key. It wasn't just participation that mattered, but sustained engagement and progressive achievement within the same activity over time. One of the most powerful stories in the book comes from Duckworth's research with taxi drivers in New York City. She found that on rainy days, when demand for taxis was higher and they could earn more money, many drivers actually worked fewer hours. They had a daily income target, and once they reached it, they went home. But the most successful drivers did the opposite. They worked longer when opportunities were better. This illustrates how our mindset about effort and opportunity can dramatically impact our results. Let me share the key distinctions that make all the difference in developing grit. First, understand the difference between harmonious and obsessive passion. Harmonious passion means you love what you do and it enriches your life, while obsessive passion means you feel compelled to do something and it creates internal conflict. Gritty people tend to have harmonious passion. They're deeply committed, but also maintain perspective and balance. Second, recognize that talent is how fast your skills improve when you invest effort, but achievement is what happens when you take your acquired skills and use them. Both skill building and skill using require effort, which means effort counts twice in the achievement equation. This is why effort often trumps talent in real-world success. Third, understand that grit is not about suffering for suffering's sake. It's about finding something you care deeply about and then giving it everything you have. The hard work feels worthwhile because it serves something meaningful to you. Without that sense of purpose and passion, perseverance alone can lead to burnout rather than achievement. Here's how you can start building more grit in your daily life, starting today. Begin by reflecting on your interests and identifying what naturally draws your curiosity and attention. Don't worry if you don't have a crystal clear passion yet. Remember that interests are developed through exploration. Try new things, pay attention to what energizes you, and give promising interests time to develop. Next, connect your current work or goals to a larger purpose. Ask yourself how your efforts contribute to something beyond your own success. This might mean helping your family, serving your community, or advancing a cause you care about. When you can see the bigger impact of your daily actions, it becomes easier to persist through challenges. Practice deliberate practice in whatever skills matter most to your goals. This means identifying your weaknesses, seeking feedback, and purposefully working on the areas where you struggle most. Set aside time for focused, challenging practice, rather than just going through the motions. Remember, if it feels too comfortable, you're probably not improving as much as you could be. Finally, be intentional about the culture and community around you. Spend time with people who inspire you to grow and persist. Read stories of people who have achieved meaningful goals through sustained effort. Create accountability systems that support your long-term commitments rather than just short-term wins. Alright, my friend, let's wrap this up with the key insights that can truly transform your approach to achievement and success. First, remember that talent is just the starting point. What you do with your talent through sustained effort is what really matters. Second, passion isn't something you find in a moment of inspiration, but something you develop through years of engagement and increasing expertise. Third, setbacks and failures are inevitable parts of any meaningful journey, but how you respond to them determines whether you ultimately succeed. Fourth, having a growth mindset isn't enough. You need to combine it with deep commitment to specific long-term goals. Fifth, the people and culture around you profoundly influence your ability to persist, so choose your environment wisely. And finally, remember that grit isn't about suffering needlessly, but about finding something worth working hard for and then giving it everything you have. The beautiful truth that Angela Duckworth reveals is that the qualities that lead to achievement, passion, and perseverance are things you can develop in yourself. You don't need to be born with special talents or advantages. You just need to find something meaningful to work toward and then commit to the daily practice of getting better. Small improvements, sustained over time, create extraordinary results. If this resonated with you, I'd love for you to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our future book summaries. Leave a comment sharing one thing you're committed to developing more grit around in your own life. I read every comment and love connecting with you beautiful souls who are committed to growth and learning. Until next time, keep growing, keep persisting, and remember that your potential is far greater than you might imagine. Take care, my friend.